2,000 years later.
Ouch, damn. You guys are ruthless. I gotta be honest here, I have no idea what the fuck the critics are thinking when it comes to this movie. I don't want to basically make the same video twice in a row, but the way Black Adam is being treated is kinda ridiculous. Like, don't tell me there isn't a certain kind of superhero bias going on around here. Not to name names, but yeah, I think we can all kind of, surmise what's going on. Anyways, look, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you it's a cinematic masterwork or the superhero film to end all superhero films, but Black Adam is an incredibly fun entry in the DCEU. It's rock solid, if you will. The Rock is amazing as the character. You've got my boy Pierce Brosnan killing it, which always scores brownie points for me in a movie, and it feels like it might be setting the DCEU up for a next chapter that is a lot less messy than the post-Zack Snyder, Ezra Miller can't play the Flash because they got arrested for the 68th time, Warner Brothers executives are power-abusing jackasses nightmare limbo it's been sitting in. For the first time in a while, the future of the DCEU looks bright and promising, and in its own right, Black Adam is just a really good movie that's at the very worst inoffensive and shouldn't be sparking such vitriol, you know? Like, am I crazy to think that? What about the mediocre Marvel projects or like, Thor Love and Thunder or, She-Hulk or what are some of the other ones that have come out this year that are just downright bad? Like, what did this movie do to you? Maybe it's a product of a bygone era, but I just genuinely don't get the meanness. But I digress. At least I'm not an all-powerful being who other superheroes literally have to negotiate peace with, but you can feel like a superhero with the right meal plan, which our friends at HelloFresh are here to help with. HelloFresh is a meal kit delivery service with delicious recipes. Have a packed schedule this fall? Are you too busy going out with the boys to see Black Adam for the 10th time? HelloFresh has meals covered with a weekly selection of 30+ recipes and 70+ convenience items, all delivered to your door. Every HelloFresh recipe includes ripe, just-picked produce and travels from the farm to your door in less than a week, with recipes like scallops over butternut squash risotto or balsamic rosemary pork chops. Plans are flexible, and you can change your meal preferences or update your delivery day with just a few steps on the HelloFresh app. Weeknights can be made so much easier with foolproof step-by-step recipes ready in around 30 minutes or less. You can easily customize your meals with Hello Custom by swapping proteins or sides, upgrading to choice proteins, or even adding protein to a veggie meal. It's never been easier to eat your way. I'm always on the go between living in LA, sitting in traffic for about 3 hours, commuting to the office, going back, doing it all over again, spending time with my loved ones, my friends, my girlfriend on the weekends. How am I supposed to change the hierarchy of the DCEU if I gotta make food? HelloFresh is my go-to. It helps us plan out our meals together so we can dedicate more than those days to quality time outside of the house. So what are you waiting for? Go to HelloFresh.com and use code FilmSpeak65 for 65% off plus free shipping. That's code FilmSpeak65 at HelloFresh.com for 65% off plus free shipping. And thank you so much to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video. Right from the opening of Black Adam, the film is more than willing to match The Rock's energy. It feels like an absolute hype fest amplified by Lorne Balfe's epic score that makes you feel as though you're about to sit down for a WWE fight night. You all know that I love me some Zack Snyder. I like his vision for the DCEU, and especially his method of speed ramping and transforming an epic wide shot of some mass carnage to an intimate medium that brings out the details of what's happening. And Jaime Colette Serra in Black Adam not only brings that aesthetic back, he pulls it off properly. The imagery especially takes me right back to the likes of 300. The pacing is also brisk as hell, and it works both for and against the movie at times. Some of the character moments aren't fully allowed to breathe through the breakneck pace, but the energy also keeps the momentum of the film going. You might not like the film, but you can't possibly tell me that you were bored during it. That's exactly what I come to the DCEU for, and I'm so happy to have it back just the way things should be. And okay, to be fair, maybe the needle drops are out of touch with the tone of the film, like another filmmaker basically hijacked the movie. Maybe they're a bit too much, a bit too on the nose, but when the rest of the spectacle is working so well, I can get over the random music choices and bad dad humor. And when I say hype fest, that absolutely extends to the way that The Rock steps into the suit of Tet Adams. It's a comic book casting choice that fits like a glove. And sure, it's a big advantage to have 15 years to prepare to put that black Thunderbolt-clad uniform on, But that doesn't change the fact that from the moment Black Adam is summoned for the first time, The Rock announces himself with an explosive amount of screen presence. You combine him tearing shit up with that Snyder-esque stylization, and as far as I'm concerned, you've got me in the palm of your hand for about 2 hours. This is a performance that plays to The Rock's strengths, and it's one of his best as a result. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that The Rock is the greatest actor to have ever lived, and he'd be the first one to tell you the same. But when employed in the right manner, he's actually an effective performer. Black Adam is an understated performance that instead emphasizes physicality. You can tell that he worked to make something that is not only a physical commitment, but is a performance that sits firmly outside of his comfort zone. The product of his labors is clearly showcased on screen. We've seen The Rock do comedy, we've seen him full of charisma, and he's great at that. But stripping back the outward emotions and focusing instead on making the character imposing works brilliantly. The way he leans into the Clint Eastwood steeliness of Teth Adam, his commitment to the fact that he's a man out of time, the way he buries his disconnectedness under a facade of, well, yeah, I'm a god, I cannot be so easily shaken, is a great performance choice. He doesn't just go intense, even though The Rock is more than capable of it. He instead maintains a stoic, brooding calm that makes it so much more satisfying when he does go big. And actually, at a time where it feels like these superhero projects are deliberately trying to keep being more zany and frantic, where they all feel like they speak the same, it's actually refreshing to finally, once again, have a lead character play it fairly straight. And it's the right call for the story. I mean, apropos to how Black Adam is the origin story of an anti-hero, this film starts in a pretty bleak place. Take Kahndaq. Thousands of years ago, it was a center of power and enlightenment. But when Kahndaq needed a hero to free the oppressed, when it was on the brink of doom under their monarch who assumed control, they got Black Adam. Teth Adam's son was the real hero of Kahndaq, a selfless and courageous icon who seemed destined for martyrdom only to become a hero, until he was put in a position where his mother and father, Teth Adam, was in danger, and the boy transferred the powers of Black Adam selflessly in order to save his father at the unfortunate and unexpected cost of his own life. And rather than take up the mantle and make his son's vengeance mean something, Black Adam's grief turns him into an angel of vengeance, going against the righteousness and hope his son had for him and burying any chance Kahndaq had for a new world with the old regime. Now, the place is a mercenary hellhole, a beacon of imperialism and pillaging rather than the miraculous place it once was. It's a commentary on the lineage and legacy of heroes. Maybe if we had more heroes, our dreams would be a reality. Amon muses. Or maybe heroes are, more often than not, the impediment of dreams. There's a bit of blunt cynicism here, an apparent acceptance of the violent nature of the world and how more violence is the only solution that makes Black Adam something of an antithesis to Superman, who values a non-violent solution whenever possible. It helps to make Black Adam a more theatrical and ambitious film, way beyond what anyone seems to be giving it credit for. It takes Snyder's deconstructionist critique of heroism, but rather than being set in America, is centered on a region of the world that's been colonized, occupied, stripped of their resources and heritage on an almost unending basis for centuries, a revolving door of oppression that alternates between the world's superpower nations. So obviously, their champion is going to be pissed. He's not going to do things cleanly. He's mad, he's passionate, he's protective, and he won't hesitate to flick invaders into the sea. I love how they contrast Teth Adam's origins as a slave who became a god to the wealthy elitism of the JSA and their American privilege outlook. I actually think maybe that's the one big card stacked against the film, that it didn't get made back in 2007 and instead came out now. If this came out during the Bush era or the Iraq War, oh my god, could you imagine what a hand grenade of a critique this would have been? That being said, it completely takes a knife to the westernized, Americanized idea of heroism, and it has got its finger on the pulse of the turmoil we're facing stateside, how we view heroism, and what's going to get us through it. Sabak's entire viewpoint of how Kahndaq wasn't free, it was great, invokes a certain kind of demographic. The problem with today is that it's not like it once was in the good old days. We gotta go back to that. We gotta make Kahndaq great again. We gotta make America great again. Obviously, there are ulterior motives here, and these voices don't necessarily care that they may be infringing upon the freedom of women, minorities, and so forth. But you know what? It's all good, because things are gonna be great. Between Andor and Black Adam, it's just refreshing and reassuring to have popular media making a statement like this, taking a stand and saying something with their art on arguably the biggest and most popular platform that's out there. And let's talk about that Snyder influence, because I certainly didn't have that on my bingo card for this movie, but I guess it makes total sense when you consider The Rock's instincts as a storyteller. Grandiose, almost mythological feats of masculinity and how they intersect with heroism are kind of his bread and butter. And I think that the JSA actually drives the commentary home further. They're the US interfering with an emerging figurehead of power in the Middle East, beloved by the people, poking their nose in where it quite frankly doesn't belong. They're peacekeepers, quote unquote, trying to restore balance but not doing anything to really meaningfully help, not unless some big problem arises that threatens to affect them directly. Where was the Justice Society when mercenaries ravaged their nation? Where was the Justice Society when Kahndaq was being stripped of its culture and resources? Where was the Justice Society when their people were being oppressed? It speaks volumes that the second a savior of Kahndaq emerges to free his people and he supposedly threatens to upset the balance of Western control or interests, the JSA swiftly responds. Black Adam is a film that actively engages with the idea of superheroes and super teams being the arm of the government. And sure, Black Adam is flawed as a person, but he isn't the threat. He cares for the people. His flaws, his worldview, his almost nonchalant approach to violence is birthed out of the repeated oppression and aggression directed towards him and his people, an oppression that he himself suffered under. I was a slave before I died, then reborn a god. I think that's an incredibly effective and compelling reason for someone to harness their powers, and it makes his bitterness, at the very least, something capable of garnering sympathy, whether or not you think his violence is justified. But beyond the real-world implications, the fact that Black Adam is a morally gray and complicated hero allows for an interesting dynamic with the JSA as well. This is actually one of the first movies that has an anti-hero as a protagonist that actually engages with the idea of what exactly an anti-hero is. What do they mean? What does the word anti-hero mean, and how can we reflect that in our characters and their struggle? You've got Hawkman, who holds an altruistic view and sees violence and death as a black and white thing, an insistence that heroes don't kill people, whereas Dr. Fate sees the blurred lines, sees the fact that black and white are only the ends of the spectrum and that there is a long, long line of shades of gray in the middle. And it's a lot easier to see Fate as the reasonable one, considering the fact that the JSA didn't give a shit when Kahndaq was being oppressed by the military, but now suddenly Kahndaq has a hero and that's when they need to step in? Hawkman refuses to even consider the possibility that Black Adam is or could be seen as a hero, just because he himself doesn't view him as heroic. Black Adam never even claimed to be a hero. That was just a label his people bestowed upon him. Hawkman went out of his way to deny Black Adam's heroism anyway. Look, they're both freedom fighters in a way, but the disagreement they hold about their methods leads Hawkman to entirely dismiss and fight against him rather than finding a common ground. And I love that the film shuts Hawkman's binary down with Fate's line. It's easy to split the world into good and bad when you're the one drawing the line. God, ugh. It is delivered with such conviction by Pierce Brosnan. Oh God, it's so good. And speaking of Pierce, my boy Pierce, that's where he comes in, with the middle ground that the two seem unable to find. There's still time to change the future. Let's use it, he says. He's not only convinced that Black Adam is not entirely bad, he's also convinced that Black Adam can still change for the better, and he sees Black Adam's willingness to change. Teth Adam is someone who's actually experienced the world, been on the opposite side of privilege, understands that sometimes the only way to get things done is to fight back. Heroism comes in different forms and is directly informed by someone's culture and experiences. Again, it's not so black and white as Hawkman believes it to be. Hawkman almost deliberately has blinded himself to this idea. As evidenced by the mansion he lives in, his resources, Hawkman clearly comes from means. He never had to truly fight for his life. It's implied that his view of heroism comes from what he was told growing up as a wealthy American, not necessarily from what he's experienced. Dr. Fate has lived longer, has seen unspeakable things, but he still remains in touch with his humanity. And I genuinely don't think that Pierce is getting the credit he deserves for finding the emotionality of such a character, of a side character, of someone who doesn't necessarily have the most screen time, but makes the most of it. I mean, yeah, Dr. Fate's a badass, and you literally have James Bond playing him, so obviously the character's always gonna be cool as hell, but Pierce brings the gravitas that anchors this whole thing. And Dr. Fate is a character who will do whatever it takes to secure the better future that he not only desires, but has seen. He knows that sometimes the world doesn't need a white knight, it needs something darker. He knows why the existence of someone like Black Adam is necessary. He knows that altruistic good on its own cannot combat every threat, but he also sees the virtue of good, which is why Fate never loses faith in his friend, Hawkman. He still has his humanity after all, and so if he can save his friend's life and open a door to a better, brighter future, he will. Fate sacrifices himself to save his friend. His love willed out. He's kind of similar to Doctor Strange in the sense that he can see several moves ahead and can act accordingly, and I mean, obviously they do the hand thingy, but I've never gotten behind the idea that Strange would literally sacrifice his life for something greater. It's not in his character. Even in Infinity War, Strange allowing the snap to happen, knowing that he will be one of the 50% who vanish, rings like a hollow sacrifice as he knows he'll snap back 5 years later. Yeah, I think he can put his faith into something bigger at times, but he's still a bit selfish. He's Stephen Strange. Let's get things straight here. Dr. Fate, on the other hand, goes all the way, and he goes out like the ultimate badass in this epic scene. It is genuinely my favorite sequence in the film. The way his fight against Sabak and subsequent sacrifices intercut with Black Adam making his return. Oh, God, I love it. I mean, it's some Flash run in Zack Snyder's Justice League level epic shit. Okay, maybe not quite on that level, but it's in the same ballpark, right? They're clearly evoking that kind of thing. And that leads to the epic finale, the battle of champions decided by fate. The people being inspired to rise up against Sabak, the descendant of the monarch that ruled over and oppressed their nation and his army. It's beautiful. Someone like Black Adam proved that the people can and should have a voice, that they are more powerful than they can ever imagine, that they can dictate the future of their nation. Black Adam is a movie about the ascension of the everyday person, the regular people, the people who matter. Hawkman tricking Sabak and coming in with Fate's helmet, epic. Black Adam ripping Sabak in half like the finisher from Mortal Kombat or Injustice, fucking epic, man. And that final thesis statement the film makes about Teth Adam, about how his darkness allows him to do what other heroes like Hawkman cannot. The way that Black Adam takes his seat on the throne only to end up smashing it, declaring that he will be the people's protector but not their ruler, is just awesome, man. It feels like we actually got to watch a compelling character arc happen in a superhero film again. It feels great watching such a compelling character arc happen in a superhero film like this. Teth Adam going from being a grieving father cursed with his powers to the people's champion of Kahndaq, guided by Dr. Fate, who should absolutely be getting his own movie now, makes me feel like I actually got to experience storytelling the way that I did when Zack Snyder was at the helm of the DCEU, in a way that very few films in the superhero genre have matched since. While not as good, it definitely takes me back to the first time I saw Man of Steel. It's the type of film that demands a raw, immediate reaction, much like The Rock's past life as a wrestler, which ties into the story being told here of a pro wrestler who grinded through the circuit, became a beloved fighter, and has transitioned into being one of the most famous, successful, and widely revered celebrities of all time. And considering Black Adam is a film about a hero for the people that is being eviscerated by mostly Western critics, that also mirrors how wrestling is so often met with the thumb noses and derision of a sport in the West, it plays out like a wrestling storyline, where the hero is changed by the adoration of the people. The Rock brings so much of these sensibilities to his performance and how he crafts the character on screen, and it makes Black Adam such an immensely satisfying watch, one that captures the very essence of Dwayne Johnson. So, yeah, keep this train going, man. Black Adam 2, let's see it, baby. I want to keep this hierarchy of the DCEU going. Black Adam is an absolute hype fest, and I am completely caught up in it. Unashamedly so. I really don't give a shit if it's a film that the critics like. I like it. The Rock brings his flair for the theatrics and his passion for epic, mythic storytelling to team up with Jaime Collet-Serra for an awesome film that echoes the best of Snyder's DC, something that I hold very near and dear to my heart. They put on an incredible show with Black Adam, they crafted one of DC's best origin stories, and an incredible commentary and deconstruction of heroism as, for the first time since Henry Cavill put on the suit in Man of Steel, DC forges a true people's champion for the next chapter of their cinematic universe. Oh, what's that? Cavill's back as Superman?